meniscus are these, extra part of the joint that help increase the concavity on this really flat top of the tibia. If there weren't the meniscus there, the rounded side of the femoral condyles would just slide around all over the place. So they sit there in the meniscus, which does help to decrease shock, but it doesn't in a rotational capacity, not in a compressive capacity. And typically what we learn is that the meniscus are designed for compression, right? And what we're learning more and more is that most of the body's not really designed to do things under pure compression, because we're designed to rotate. So as we get compressed, there's a rotational component that takes pressure off of that joint structure, right, in terms of the approximation of those two bones coming together and allowing them to slide and glide and use the muscles as the tendons and the connective tissue to absorb those forces, right? So that's also one of the reasons why in the elbow we see a fracture of the olecranon, which is your funny bone, the sharp angular part of your elbow, which you guys will have to look this up. Actually, I think I have it on maybe it was the slide before. No, in this next slide, right? This part here is the olecranon of the elbow, right? So as this joint, you can see how they fit together. If this is an elbow in a flexed position, right? If this elbow is to get hyperextended, and we're going to take this olecranon process here back towards the posterior side of the humerus, it smashes into the back side of the humerus and typically fractures, right? Where in the knee, you typically see that it hyperextends and you tear your ACL. Does that make sense to everybody? I know it's hard I don't have all the pictures and everything for everything here, right? So which ultimately creates shear forces at the joint. The adjacent joints in the kinetic chain have to take up, a lot of the abuse that's going on, or the mobility that's going on at one joint, right? We see this, that one joint affects all of the other joints in these force coupling motions. But it's interesting on how things go with, if one joint is hypermobile, sometimes you see a joint get hypomobile above and below, or sometimes you see it go in the other direction, which is also why we need to do an evaluation-based protocol. There are some assumptions that can be made because the intrinsic nature of these joints, some of them are more hypermobile, like the knee, where you have all of this range of motion capability, and then you have less range of motion capability at the SI joint, for example, the sacroiliac joint in the pelvis, right? So you're not going to necessarily see that. Or in the joints of the spine, like we talked about before, you see a lot of small movements leading up to a big movement in the spine over the 33 joints or 31 joints or whatever it is we came to the conclusion of last time, how many joints in the spine that there were. Can't forget about the sacrum and the coccyx as well. So